Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Success Without Sacrifice show. Today, we're going to be speaking with Tabitha, a partner in management consulting, who's going to share with us how she is a successful partner, a mom, a wife, and how she's dialed in having it all. Stay tuned. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Success Without Sacrifice show. I'm really excited. We have a special guest here today, Tabitha, who is going to, she is a partner in her company, and she's going to be sharing her story of what it's really like to be a successful woman without all the sacrifice and sort of the road she's traveled. So Tabitha, welcome. We're really excited to get to know you and be inspired by, I guess, the lessons and the learnings you're going to share with us today. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. It's a pleasure to be here and be able to have this conversation with you, especially after all that your program in particular has had an impact on me and my leadership style. So I'm really looking forward to sharing what that has really meant for my career.
Oh, amazing. Awesome. Well, let's dig in. Thank you, Tabitha. Tell us just a little bit, maybe what you do, give us a flavor for what, your career is like and all that.
Yep. So I've spent my career in management consulting. So mostly in the finance accounting space, that's transitioned from basic kind of blocking and tackling of the finance space to really trying to drive more innovation. And then as I've become a leader, my role has really pivoted more to kind of coaching and advising finance leaders, as well as mentoring the next kind of level of leadership, both within my firm and at my clients. And so now I tend to do a lot more around more innovative kind of future of finance and where that's heading in modern finance topics, embedding new technologies, as well as helping finance kind of define a new identity and how they operate within the business.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that sounds really juicy and cool. I'm curious, Tabitha, is it, management consulting? The first thing that comes to mind for me is, those are some brutal hours, client facing, usually tends to be a pretty big job, no matter what level you're at. So yeah, maybe give us some color to that. What are some of the challenges that someone in your role or someone in management consulting might be facing that would make it difficult to, have success with ease, I guess?
Yeah, I often say as consultants, must be gluttons for punishment, because the client service, the nature of it is you're always kind of trying to figure out how do you best solve client issues, and they may not even be aware of what the issues are. And then whenever you figure out what you need to solve for, you need to get a bunch of very senior level people on board with what it's going to take to change. And nobody likes to take on change, especially if it means it disrupts their day-to-day. The change can be very hard for most of my clients. And so making it as easy as you can and painless as you can is sort of the nature of our job. In the meantime, being willing to take on the hard decisions and hard tasks that may be difficult to do internally. So that may be saying you have to completely change how you work. You've got to completely overhaul, how people operate, where they sit, their day-to-day jobs. It's difficult to kind of push on that level of change. And so I'd say my day-to-day is really advising, the leaders on how to operate within that, and then really coaching their teams on how can they be okay with it and how they tackle basically operating in a totally different way. And so, yeah, it is long hours, constant, especially at this level, constant crisis. I say my full-time job is really dealing with nothing but issues as they arise. Very rarely do I get a call that somebody says, hey, I just want to let you know you're doing a great job solving problems for our clients. That doesn't happen very much. And I think the more senior you go, the less those calls happen. So it takes a while sometimes to see the real impact that you're having. But I do like the challenge day to day. I like what we get to solve for. I like that we get to come into their lives at a time when they actually also may be working significant amount of hours, and we can really help them alleviate some of that pain. But in the process, it is a pretty time intensive.
Okay. Wow. So I get it. So before I want to go down that talk track in a minute, but before we go too far off that, let's help everyone understand what else you have on your plate, because you're not just Tabitha working on an island all by yourself. You have family and other things going on in your life. So what else creates, I guess, joy, but also demands of your time?
So I'm married with two daughters. We live in Chicago. And so we are very, committed to the city and the issues of the city. That's passionate about that. Also really passionate about just having a marriage that, and with my best friend, with getting to experience a lot together and really enjoying that part of my life. And then being a mom has been one of the greatest joys of my life, and having two daughters I can really be a model for has sort of given me a new sense of purpose in the work that I do day to day and how I lead the women in my practice as well. So outside of work, I spend, a lot of time and just really enjoying my family as well as the hobbies that we have within the city.
Wow. Okay. So everyone right now is like, okay, how does she do it? A partner in management consulting, two daughters, happy marriage. That's a lot. That's a lot on your plate, especially when you're working in an industry and a client service industry that demands a lot of your time. So what are some of the challenges maybe that you were facing that brought you, over to us that said, okay, now that I'm here, I want to start working in some more effective ways. Like what were you experiencing maybe?
Yeah, when I joined the program, I was up for partner. I was working for another partner at the time who was very demanding, very critical, and actually had kind of, been very difficult for me to work with. And so to prove myself, I was working significant amount of hours, going into deep level of detail, and then having to pull back and be the face to the client. But in the process, neglected everybody I loved. That's kind of the point where I was at. It was the beginning of the pandemic, and I wasn't even seeing my family, even though I'm used to traveling and being on the road. I was now home, but I wasn't actually seeing them. I wasn't able to put my daughters to bed because I was trying to be there for my team and be there for my clients and, be all the things to the partner I was working for. So I really had my priorities misplaced, trying to sort of prove myself in what I would call the hamster wheel of a project where you're just, cycling through. You feel like you're getting somewhere, but in the end, you sort of are kind of still stuck where you started. And like I said, it takes a while to really see the value and the impact that you're having. It really starts to wear on you after a while. So that's what sort of brought me to a desperate place where I saw, an ad and said, I've got to try something different. The strategies I'm using right now are not working. They're kind of pushing all my free time to the weekend and, waiting until 10 p.m. to get time to myself. Like none of that was filling me. In fact, it felt like it was beating me down a little bit. So that's where I started.
Yeah. And, I'm so glad you said that, Tabitha, because it's so common for us, I think, especially as women, but as high performing women, we do this. I call it like holding your breath. I'm going to hold my breath. And then once I get to the weekend, I can exhale and relax. Or like you said, I'm going to just be all things to everyone all day long. And then finally at 10 o'clock, I'm going to hope that I have enough energy to, carve out 5 minutes for myself, which half the time is one page in your book. And then you fall asleep, and like, no wonder, we burn out, or these.
Or binge watching.
Yeah. Binge watching. Yeah. Was that yours? The binge watching of the TV shows? Yeah. Yeah. And at some point you kind of just wake up and go, is this my life? Like, am I just going to binge watch TV shows for the rest of my life? So I'm curious, Tabitha, do you feel like you've been working that way for a while, that sort of all or nothing approach? Or do you think it was more in just trying to get to this partnership level, which is, a pretty big process in itself?
No, I think it's been a theme throughout my career. I think there's been pockets of having good strategies and working with a good team. It's like when all the pieces were in place, when I had a good team, good project, good client, or at least a couple of those, then I felt like, things are going pretty well and I've got this handled. Also coming out of maternity leave when my kids were really young, I felt like empowered that I needed to kind of be there for them. And so I did feel like I could separate that a bit more. But now as they've kind of got their own schedule, their own lives, their own activities, it's easy to get sucked back into that again. And so I'm finding that those strategies only, play out for so long before it catches up with me again. I have a difficult project, difficult, client relationship, or difficult team or new team. And then it stirs all back up again. So that's where I think I saw it was more of a pattern rather than the nature of going for partner. And I also, saw that being on the other side of it, being a partner wasn't going to necessarily fix it. In fact, it might make it worse. And so I kept thinking with each new level, I'll be able to have more say, I'll have more authority, I'll be able to, but I kept falling back to the same strategies. I'm being challenged, I'm going to go back into the details. My team isn't operating, I'm going to go kind of try and save the day and help them course correct. So I was definitely falling back on the same patterns.
I'm so glad you said that. And it's really wise that you were able to see that, because it took me a long time to see that pattern in myself. It wasn't until, for me, I actually had to actually snap and burn out and walk away. And it wasn't until I was actually living on the island that the shadow of Kate followed her. And it was like, oh, no kidding. There we are, the same problem. So I didn't see that for a long time. But one of the things I think you just said that was really interesting was that the whole sense of not only just sort of holding your breath, but always sort of diving back in. It's like if those are the strategies that have worked for you, like for example, if your team is struggling, then how much do you step in? Do you step in a lot? Do you not step in at all? Do you let them sort of wobble? Because at the end of the day, as leaders, it's all on us, and not really knowing what that tempo should be and where those boundaries should be, I think is really tough for a lot of women. And what we do is we just kind of say, well, it'll get better after the next project. Or like you said, it'll get better when I get to partner. And something you just said, Tabitha, that I wanted to emphasize for everyone who's listening is Tabitha said at the very beginning of the show is she said, it was always tough. There's always the next challenge. There's always the next thing. Like nowhere in your role or as you've escalated into higher levels of leadership, has it ever gotten easier? And I think as women, we're waiting for that. Like, where's that space where it all gets easy? And it's like, it doesn't. So you have to learn how to operate differently so you can make it easier on yourself. And that's what I'm really hearing from you, Tabitha.
Yeah. So I said, like at the beginning, I kind of joked that we're gluttons for punishment, but I really think that has now evolved into, I like the challenge. I like the opportunities. I like solving things that are more complex, which means I'm always going to be in the middle of a challenge, right? By the nature of leading big teams, by wanting to have influence, by wanting to solve bigger problems, I'm always going to be right in the middle of the tough stuff. And so now that I know that that is the nature of my job, now how do I operate within that and not let that consume me? I think that became very much my objective over the past couple of years of really, how do I step into that in a way that is authentic to me? Because I was actually close to that burnout. I was close to stepping away just a year from being, making partner, which is tragic, right? It's tragic to think that there's only one way to do it and then it has to look like what everyone else before me has done, rather than think that I'm empowered to change that and set that a different standard for how that looks.
Oh, Tabitha, a girl after my own heart. Did you all hear that? She just said, why do I have to do it the way all these other women have done it, or the way, or men or women
Or men.
for me? Yeah. Why not create your own path and trailblaze a new way for success, which is exactly what you're doing. Tabitha, I'm curious, is your particular industry or your niche, is it more male dominated? Are you one of few women, or is it pretty equal?
I am. I'm actually one of very few women who have made partner within my group. There's others in our firm. We do tax services and audit services, and there's quite a few more women in those practices. But in consulting, I think partly the nature of the travel, the nature of high intensity, it tends to kind of burn women out, especially when they want to have families. And so I am one of very few that have made, partner within my practice or transferred in from other groups. So that also could be definitely intimidating because there aren't many examples for me to follow. I mean, I've not really worked for any female partners my entire career so far. So being able to kind of set that tone without much of an example is quite difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, it is challenging. It is challenging. Okay. But I want to hear how you've tackled this, because having known you for a while, Tabitha, one thing that I don't feel has ever been a big theme for you is like that whole, oh gosh, I work in a male dominated culture. This is so tough. I think it's been more, I work in an industry and I have a career that is challenging, regardless of male or female. So I think that's going to really inspire a lot of women, because I think women a lot of times see that male dominated culture and are assuming things that aren't really there and or making it tougher on themselves in some ways. I don't think it's always the guys. I think a lot of times it's us and our perception of. So, okay, let's jump into this. Tell us some success stories. Like, where were you and what's different now that you're navigating your career differently? What are you doing differently? What have you learned? And how are you putting those things into practice?
I think the biggest thing I've learned is what is the human nature, right? What really drives people, motivates them. I think that has perplexed me for years. And so those that were similar to me, I got that. I understood where they were coming from. I could see and relate to them, including men. That's when my favorite clients are males who think and operate very similar to me. So that I'm good. But anybody that was different, that had more of a entrepreneur that was really likes the challenge. Like I like the challenge, but I like to play it a little bit maybe safer. I'm still an accountant by heart, or still a finance person, that is a little bit more detail oriented and a little bit more cautious. And so those that really were just, as you would say, like, let's take a rocket ship to the moon. It was hard for me to always understand how to communicate with that type in a way that was compelling and that was effective without bringing them through the details. And so Now that I understand how they operate, I don't misread their reaction to me or how they've handled a situation in the same way I used to. So an example of this would be I have one client that I'm working with, and he has very little time for going through the details. Doesn't really care about the whys, just wants to get to the punchline. And it can come across like you're really not interested in the perspective I have, or what I bring, the value I bring, or what you really need to solve for. And I very quickly can kind of dismiss the person as you just don't get it or you don't care. And really, that's not the case. I think he's very passionate, and also, so now that I can see through what strategies have made him successful and why he operates the way he does, now I know how to like meet him there, but also break that down a little bit and help him open his eyes to something that he may not be seeing. And so I think that's been a big unlock. Also, just not internalizing as much. So I've had clients that have been maybe quick to dismiss me because I'm a female, thinking that my manager who's joining me is the partner or the director instead of me. And now I can see it for what it is and see, okay, in their past, like this is not what leadership has looked like. So now it's my opportunity and my, to be able to educate them and to be able to show them what it looks like to have a female leader on this project in this case. So those are some of the ways in which just, from managing my clients to managing other partners. I also have been able to show up in a room, went to dinner a couple of weeks ago with 5 male partners and sat in there and was able to flip my thinking from I'm the only female in here to, this is my chance to just enjoy being with them and to understand more what kind of drives them, what motivates them, and listen in a different way and be a different kind of fellow partner that they've been maybe been wanting for a while, but really haven't been able to kind of be them authentic selves. They've had to kind of be a certain type of partner to be operating in their space. And so when I was able to do that, then I really was able to be curious and be fully present. And didn't feel a need to sort of protect myself or show up in a certain way that would give myself value in the room. And so I think, it's just it's different, it's freed up so much capacity in my mind now to be genuinely curious and also just enjoy myself a lot more.
Oh my gosh. Is everyone hearing that? Oh, Tabitha, those were incredible examples, because a lot of times I think as women, what we're doing is we're like, oh, I just need more time. I need more time in my day. I need more time with my kids. I need more time in the weekend. It's not always about more time, because Tabitha, what you're talking about, you are actually creating more time for yourself because you're not spending so much time, like you're saying, over preparing for a meeting or worrying after how the meeting went, or trying to over prepare for the exchange. And how do I come at this person and how will I get them to listen to me this time, or festering after you leave the room. Like there is so much energy, ladies who are out there listening, that we put into worrying about how we're going to communicate with someone, how we communicated with that person, and what Tabitha is saying is you're just able to move forward with whatever situation, quickly assess what those motivators are, the other person from a human behavior standpoint, and then speak to that. And then they're like, oh, wow, Tabitha, that was amazing. Thanks. Bye. And you just go on your merry way and just continue to kill at work and have, like, I'm assuming, plenty of energy when you get home for, your kids or your hubby or whatever else you want to do.
I can now really appreciate too the limitations. I mean, when you operate so differently from somebody else, it's really hard to know how do you coach them, how do you guide them. I mean, just like I said, that I struggled with a certain executive leader type that now I can better relate to. I also now have more of an appreciation for some of the men that I've worked for that have been great mentors and coaches to me, that may have struggled with how exactly do they mentor me in particular at a certain level. And so now I can give them better kind of words, or I can be more specific around here's the kind of support I'm looking for from you, or I can just be realistic around what they're capable of and know how to find my support elsewhere. And in this case, it's been very much my tribe that through CWR, CWU has been able to fill the gap that a lot of the men that I work with just they haven't been built that way, they haven't been trained that way, they're not oriented a certain way. And so to expect them to provide, all aspects of mentorship and coaching to me and support is sort of too much to ask of them. And so, so I think really figuring out, like, how do I kind of get these different roles in my life to support me, and find that right, what I call my board of directors, without over dependence on a particular person that maybe is only meant to fill one particular role, and also coaching and encouraging the women that I work with as well to do the same, to be clear on what the limitations are of certain leaders or certain individuals, and then how to fill those gaps and support elsewhere, but also, the whole internal esteem and being able to work on themselves so that they don't need a lot of validation external, but they can really rely on their confidence within themselves and what they're capable of.
Yeah, I love that, Tabitha, because I know for a long time I didn't understand the power of being in a powerful group of women. And a lot of times I will have to say, as I was coming up through executive ranks, we were just talking about this, a lot of women were really competitive because there were so few spots. We weren't supporting each other. It was,
No.
I couldn't show
Mhm.
my true self. And I think there's something really valuable about like what you're saying is you've removed yourself one step away from the firm, and now through corporate women refined, it's really about, here's this powerful group of women all resourcing each other, all understanding and getting each other, all saying, hey, I'll challenge you, but I'll challenge you from a place of caring about you, knowing that I'm facing the same challenges, and we can just get those answers that we need and move on with our lives so much quicker. It's pretty inspiring to see. That's awesome. So it's good to know that that's part of your, it sounds like it's part of one of your strategies, is resourcing yourself in that way. Okay. How else are you finding that you're able to bring influence? We talk a lot about being like the magician versus the mule, like really understanding your value. Um, and being able to, as a woman, navigate and saying, hey, look, this is when I'm available, this is not when I'm available. I mean, this is one of the things I'm always preaching, which is, if we're available to all people at all times, we actually lose value. It's when you sometimes say, hey, you know what, I can't be there for that meeting, but I could be here at this time. So are those some things that you've played with and are finding that are helping you as well?
Yeah, I'd love to share a story about a particular director that's been working on my team, and first time working together, and he's more older than me, has 5 kids, has just come out of kind of a major health crisis, and just getting back into the consulting world. And we had an issue with a particular vendor, and I could have handled it one of two ways. I could have been quick to say, here, that wasn't cool, don't do it again, and known that he would have probably spiraled a little bit after kind of getting admonished by me. I could have jumped in and said, let me fix this, I'm just gonna I'm gonna recover for us and keep him in the background, but then that puts me more front and center to always have to be the face and always have to be interceding with the client. Or I can coach him on some of the strategies I've learned and also let him know that I see him. And so I chose that path because I know what it's like to be in his shoes and to misstep or say the wrong thing and then have that come back to kind of bite you. And then you're spending a bunch of time cycling around it. So we spent time talking about, here's, I see you, I sort of see what's going on, let's not overcorrect. And instead kind of coach him through it and let him know, you're going through a lot right now and it's okay to say that, but no, like your strength is not in getting into a disagreement with the vendor. Your strength is in bringing your expertise, which you are the best. You are the expert in the field. And so reminding him of what he was good at, reminding him to not overdo it, and reminding him to not cycle on it, and reminding him that the other person on the other side was also human, dealing with their own kind of internal challenges, which is why they operated the way that they do. And coming out of that, I got this incredible letter, this beautiful piece of art that he had sent me, just reminding me of like the fact that I could see him, that I could meet him where he was and support him rather than be quick to kind of tear him down. I think had a much bigger impact and influence on him than had I taken the other strategies. It would have felt easy at the time, but wouldn't have paid off in the long run. And so now with each challenge that comes up, I keep empowering him. Well, what do you want to do about it? And here's, how are you going to handle this? And how do you continue to use your strengths? And then where you feel like you're not as strong, come to me with the guidance and how I would handle it. And then that it's just been much more productive. It's taken much less of my time because I'm now not having to kind of jump into every situation to address, to solve.
Right. And that's that hands-off leadership we're all looking for, which is why can't my people just do what we want them to do? But it's human leadership that gets us all there. It's what helps them get there. It's what helps us get there. And what you're describing to the audience is you're putting the effort and the time in up front versus on the back end. Because a lot of times as high achieving women, we just throw out directions, just do it. What's your problem? Get it done. And then we end up with a pile at the end that we don't want. And then we're up till midnight correcting or course correcting and the whole thing, instead of you're putting that human aspect in the beginning.
Clients too. I mean, I've used these now with clients to better understand them, to be real with them, to be more vulnerable with them, and then also letting them know I see them too. I think it's so refreshing for clients to, one actually sent me a note and was like, you really see me, don't you? I didn't realize you had paid attention to all the things, that I was doing to connect across these cultural boundaries. And and to lead this. I mean, it was like a offsite with an entire global team. And I mean, I saw all the things that she contributed to that. And I just kind of said it in passing. And I mean, I feel like people are so thirsty for someone to see them and recognize their gifts. And we spend way more time sort of tearing people down, telling them what they're not doing right, or fluffing them up with false, false compliments. And I feel like that's not healthy either. So I feel like with clients, I've been able to influence them quite a bit more too by just, talking on a different level, being real and not being too concerned around how are they going to receive this, or what if I say the wrong thing, but rather just being authentic and just being truly me. And it feels good to be me rather than trying to be something that I think I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. And Tabitha, that's so critical because I think we do, like, as you come up through corporate America, you're supposed to be this person and you learn to be this person that's not always you. But I think the key is, and we do a lot of teaching on esteem and human behavior, is really understanding how you have to rewire yourself. So when we as women walk in the room, instead of being afraid of being judged or afraid of missing out or afraid of losing our place at the table, like you're saying, you can just walk in and be curious and have a human to human conversation. And the other people, I don't care if it's the gruffest dude in the world, they're so grateful. They're like, oh my God. They don't even know why they want to be around you sometimes. They're just like, I feel like I get my needs met. That's not what they're saying. But, when I'm around you, that's influence. I am going to close off our conversation for now and just say thank you so much. Like, this has been super inspiring. I know a lot of women can relate to where you have been and are certainly going to be really excited to think about what's possible for them based on what you are, but based on where you are, and keep trailblazing. I love what you're doing in your industry, Tabitha. It's just such a thrill. We've just so enjoyed you being part of this community, and it's just been my pleasure. So thanks for being here.
Thank you, Kate. Yeah, same to you. You're the number one trailblazer with trying to help us operate differently. So making waves across all industries, and I'm just so honored to be a part of it.
Wow. What an incredible, incredible story. Tabitha, thank you so much for being here. And that's going to wrap for our show. But listen, if you're a woman out there who is also like Tabitha thinking, I don't know, should I step forward into partnership, the next level? And you're considering holding yourself back, please don't unless you book a call with our team first. Let us chat with you, see what's going on, what's working, what's not, and really what may be possible for you. So I want you to go to goodlifeinstitute.org/call, pick a time with our team, and one of our coaches will be there for you. And we're going to listen. It's a great opportunity to speak with someone who is an expert in this field, who understands the challenges firsthand that you're facing, and can also give you just some confidential third-party guidance. And look, if it's a fit for you to work with us, fabulous. We'll be happy to share that. But if not, we have a lot of other resources we could point you to as well. But don't make that step back or hold yourself back, ladies, until you at least have given yourself the opportunity for a call. Well, I hope this episode has been inspiring. I can't wait to see you all again, and we'll talk soon. Hi, thanks for tuning into today's show. If you want to subscribe, you can do that by clicking the little picture of me over there. If you want to book a breakthrough call, which you absolutely should do, you can click the button below or go to goodlifeinstitute.org/call to book an appointment to speak to us. I'll see you on the next show.